Up here in the top right position, give it up for the guy representing the dragon. He is Alpha X's ZOUN. And his opponent, down here in the bottom left, give it up for the Shopify Rebellion's BYUN. Now, BYUN obviously took his group relatively pain-free on the first day in Group A. You know, ZOUN had a little bit of a rougher road. He obviously had to play for versus Cure in order to kind of get through his group in second place. But overall, I think both of these guys are going to put on an amazing show here. I don't want to say either side is really favored either, because especially in this current meta, we just see so many different iterations of this matchup. You know, BYUN, he's very aggressive. He loves to be in your face, and when he can make those pushes work, it is a beautiful thing to watch. But that's one of the things that Protoss players have really figured out about BYUN. You have to stop that forward momentum. You have to be able to out-macro him, out-micro him. And while that is a hard ask, I will admit, at the end of the day, they have figured out how to do it in a lot of different cases. It's, yeah, that's kind of how it goes. I think I don't have, music on. Let me just make sure of that. Yeah, there we go. But yeah, now what we see right now is BYUN is going for that very fast 3cc. He's trying to take advantage of the fact that this map is relatively large. And this can be pretty good if it doesn't go... Excuse me, that's not a 3cc. I am seeing double here. It's just a regular 3 racks coming on in. And yeah, I prefer that a little bit more. 3cc can be pretty good if your opponent doesn't scout around for it. But at the end of the day, you know, ZOUN is definitely going to want to keep information up and operational at all times. And you can see he's kind of being very defensive as well. Getting the shield battery up in his main base. He might drop down one in the natural as well. Just doing everything he can in case of that early aggression. And to BYUN's credit, you know, he's just going to be gearing up for a little bit. We shouldn't see him move out on the map too soon from now. He's going to be waiting for his upgrades to kind of kick in, and you definitely want a couple of Marauders. But at the end of the day, ZOUN has the kind of perfect counter to this. He's going for Blink. He's got those additional gateways. And he's just going to be pumping out these Stalkers first of all, which is going to slow down any forward aggression of BYUN. And one big thing about 2000 Atmospheres is you do have to make a pretty bold decision as to where you throw down your third base. As we do have over here on the low ground expansion on the 12 o'clock position, a nice little rock wall. And if you guys know anything about Terran players, they see rocks and they instantly think siege tank. It just goes without saying, you know. Oxide, Beckett Industries, Blackburn even has a couple of places that you can park a siege tank. But you know what? I digress on that point because we do have BYUN moving out. I don't think he's been seen. That Zelnaga watchtower is not operational right now. But ZOUN will be in position. Gets a couple of... tries to go for a couple of pickoffs here. Gets the Marines, but the Marauders are the big key to this. They will get some pretty good shots off. A really fast shield overcharge right there. I'm not 100% certain about that one. Just because now BYUN can actually engage in here without having to worry about it because of the distance. He will get a couple of Stalkers, but this army is getting weaker and weaker without that medevac support. So while this is gonna get cleaned up here. Honestly, I don't think BYUN is really gonna lose too much sleep over it. He got plenty of stalkers, if we can kind of see. He killed about 3 of them. So while it doesn't look great in the resources lost tab, it essentially forced ZOUN to make a little bit more than I believe he might have been comfortable with. And now we see BYUN still trying to kind of move out, catch these stalkers, which are trying to catch BYUN. And yeah, I think BYUN just has to be a little bit careful about this. He does have the starport, so he can start kind of augmenting this force with those medevacs. But the production was delayed for a little bit. I think he was supply blocked for a second. That's one thing you really can't afford to do against ZOUN, who is now going up to Colossus, now getting those additional gateways, and will be just a little bit behind in terms of those upgrades. But honestly, in that position, I don't think it really is going to matter too much, because this is one big problem that BYUN can have. Right now, I see him just pumping out Marauders, Marines, and trying to overwhelm his opponent, but I don't know when he's going to transition. And as you guys know, if a Terran player doesn't transition, if he kind of sticks with this, sure, there is a possibility that you do kind of catch your opponent off and kill him just with brute force. But at the end of the day, it's not really a big guarantee. But hold that thought, as he's going to get a really nice pick off here, delaying that extended thermal lance. Might even be able to get that +1 upgrade. That was an absolutely fantastic drop right there. Now, on the other side of things, we do have a very small Zealot run by. Going to get maybe 1 or 2 workers here. Got to be a little bit careful with this medevac. Hey, R2 Doc, I'll get that after the game for you. But now we see BYUN just going to be doing whatever he can to kind of keep that forward momentum going. As you can see, still just Marine Marauder medevac. He's starting to add in a couple of Widow Mines here, but that production isn't really consistent. It's not necessarily an all-in either, because he does have that 3rd base. He is equal on that count. But here we go, as the Zealots gonna take the brunt of the hits here, while the Colossus doing an okay bit of damage. Remember, they do have to get a little bit closer in order to attack, because they do not have that lance. And now BYUN kind of just rotating around this position. I think he's just kind of keeping himself open to the possibility of a big doom drop into the main base. And ZOUN kind of has that possibility open for himself as well. But yeah, so far, nothing really too much here. We're going to be seeing some small engagements, I'd imagine, as BYUN really does need to kind of get some efficient trades with this composition, since, again, we don't really see an effective follow-up. And now with Archons in play, now with those upgrades starting to kick in, BYUN still only on that +1 attack. Everything's just a little bit delayed for the Terran player, so the kind of leads that he might have given himself are starting to dissipate a little bit, as ZOUN just catches up further and further. Now the Warp Prism is on the way, and that is going to be a pretty big deal here for BYUN. It's going to pull away a lot of his attention, I imagine, as ZOUN is going to catch this army, trying to go for the 4th Nexus, but not going to dive in with the other side. Now, I feel like ZOUN is in a very forward position with this location. And, you know, there is a lot here, but for the amount of bio, might not be a good idea to try and engage separately here. But I digress. Here we go. The Colossus doing what it can, as the Zealots tanking a little bit of that fire. The shield battery overcharge is down and out as the Zealot Warpin going straight into the third base and crushing through quite a few of those SCVs. BYUN forced to retreat for the meantime, pulling his entire army back home. A Disruptor looks like it will not get its shot off, so BYUN will be able to force this back. But now ZOUN is going to bring his forces together, I'd imagine. Yeah, BYUN going to be able to catch it in the center there. Some nice pickoffs. Look at that focus fire. That was incredible for him, but still not able to kill off the Colossus in the backfield. So it will live to fight another day. Oh my goodness, the trades from both sides here. BYUN getting a little bit caught in his own corner with his Sim City, as the Medivacs starting to get picked off by the Stalkers on this side. More Disruptors, +2 on the way. And now ZOUN is doing a really good job of keeping himself out on the map. Not really paying attention to these Widow Mines, though. A little bit of an issue right there. But yeah. I mean, you can't really say too much else about it, to be completely honest. We will see BYUN moving out once again with a small force. A small but scary force, I must say. Looks like he's actually going to bring his entire army together, and that's probably going to indicate to ZOUN that he can send another Zealot Warp in to kind of bring BYUN back. He just needs to keep the pressure off of himself. But here we go. BYUN finding half the army. The Colossus will survive, but the EMP is going to instantly crush through one of those Archons. BYUN is taking the supply lead. His army is so much bigger, and now he's just going to go for the 1-2 punch, attacking on the right side, striking at the left. The Nexus might go down here, and honestly, ZOUN's starting to fall apart just a little bit. He is losing a lot of high-tier units to these pushes. Yeah, look at that. He's not even able to clean up that small force on the left side. The last of the Colossus go down. Disruptors looking for that Hail Mary there. Will get a couple of units, but I mean, at the end of the day, BYUN is now entrenched at the top of this ramp. We'll do a very quick pickup there to save himself from the Disruptor. Oh, a little bit of a mistake, I think, keeping that Medivac filled up. I think he recognizes that, but he doesn't care. This Nexus is dead. ZOUN down 50 supply. Ugh, my goodness. BYUN just all over the place now. One good Disruptor hit, though, turns the tide. Oof. Running into that one as well. So, you know, BYUN taking pretty good trades overall, and now it's just Marine Marauder. This is that position where it's okay to not transition very quickly. As long as you're killing off these expensive Colossus, these expensive Disruptors, the lethal Archons, then you can stay on this composition. Here we go, BYUN bringing himself another big Doom drop. The Disruptor trying to force this back, but the Widow Mine's going to keep ZOUN from going too far forward. This drop goes completely undetected, and that is going to be it. GG is called. And you know what? I think it's kind of funny here because the Protoss is considered an empire back in Brood War. So if you think about it, like now that BYUN is part of the Rebellion, this is pretty much a Star Wars movie. Because it's the Rebellion versus the Empire. But one thing to keep an eye out for is the fact that Lightshade is a much smaller map in terms of that reinforcement point, in terms of that rush distance. So that kind of powerful thing that BYUN was doing in the last game could be a lot more potent And just kind of the fact that he will be able to get his forces around the map a little bit quicker. In a game like StarCraft 2, every second counts. And so we do have to keep an eye out for what he decides to do. He's going to go for a Reaper in this game. I don't necessarily hate that idea, but we have seen a lot of Terran players just decide to forego that Reaper in order to be able to get a quicker defense out in the event of an Adept coming across the map. Because basically you throw down a Marine, you drop the reactor a little bit quicker, and then from there you just kind of just start pumping out the Marines. It's safe versus Stargate. It's safe versus these early little rushes, like the parting strategy. It can be very good. And right now we do have what looks to be potentially another 3 racks, as we have 2 Marauders coming on out with the concussive shell. I think what he's going to do is he's going to be sending these 2 Marauders across the map, maybe even going to add an additional Marine. Yeah, there we go. So, a bit of a 2-1-1. So, not a total 3 racks. Very, very interesting here. Obviously, this is something that BYUN has loved to do for a long time. I've seen him do this pretty much since his WCS run back in 2016. He used to do this on his stream a lot. It's a very powerful strategy versus Protoss players back then. It's not as powerful now, just because you can kind of see that ZOUN is powering up a little bit quicker. And honestly, this is looking a bit like a 4-gate opening for him. So right after this, if he does hold, he's going to go for some aggression of his own. But already, a lot of probes being pulled. 5 of them going to go down. And these Marauders just not taking any damage to the Adept. The Stalker is getting crushed here. So ZOUN taking quite a bit of damage. And now BYUN has seen how fast that robotics facility is. He sees something being chronoed out. So he's just going to drop down a bunker back at home. And just got to be a little bit careful. Position these units well. And he should, honestly, be pretty safe versus the blink play. Yeah, because think about it. ZOUN would really have liked to have a couple of additional Stalkers with this first wave. Just makes it a little bit easier for him to kind of break through. Since there is that additional racks pumping out the Marauders, it just makes it a little bit harder to kind of break in here to this base. So now the SCV is being pulled. The bunker doing a good job of kind of tanking some of that fire. And ZOUN just being forced to kind of stay out here in the back. The Observer is now in position, so he should be able to go into the main base if he wants. The bunker does go down even, but got to be careful since those Marauders do have concussive shells. And over the other side, ZOUN not paying attention will lose 10 of his probes. Now Stim is a big indicator on when this attack is pretty much going to be dead in the water, as the siege tank in the backfield is going to add a lot of utility to this. The SCV still a couple being pulled to help out, but this is nowhere near the amount of damage that ZOUN needs to do to close this one out. Looks like gonna try and pull BYUN's attention away from multiple locations here as he sends just a 4-Stalker hit squad into the main base. Stim is now complete, so BYUN's not going to take too much from him. But if ZOUN can keep this kind of death by 1,000 cuts situation, transition back at home, which I'll admit is going to be a little bit difficult, because he's continuously getting his mining very interrupted here with these Widow Mines. But yeah, if he can keep this up, he's gonna have, he's gonna need to transition soon. But I mean, if he keeps getting these kills, I think he can do it. Yeah, back in the lead, just slightly with that worker count here. Now, the biggest problem for him is he did invest quite a bit into that attack. That's why when you see 4 gates, you know it's almost completely all in. It's because of the amount of investment that you have to put into it. As we do see that observer going down the Stalker hit squad. We'll kind of hang out here, just try and keep a little bit of map presence in case BYUN decides to move out, which it looks like he's getting ready to, while he gets his third base up and operational in the next 2 to 3 minutes. Yeah, there you go. The Stalkers now, their entire goal is slow BYUN down. And already doing a pretty good job of it, forcing that siege up in the back. The Stalkers as well going to pull away some of his attention, bringing the reinforcements to deal with this. 5 more SCVs going down. Does lose a Stalker right there. Has to still be careful with that. Looks like the first Colossus is on the way. Oh my goodness, ZOUN might not see this. Takes a huge siege tank volley there. Now BYUN has to be a little bit careful, only because he doesn't really have a lot of healing with this army. He only has these 2 medevacs, and there are Colossus at the top. Finding himself a pretty good position here, however. Those siege tanks getting nice and close to the natural. Also opening up the possibility to go straight into the main base here. ZOUN taking a very big volley right there. The War Prism dropping some Zealots, but it is just not enough. GG is called. Up here in the top right position, he needs all of your energy, ladies and gentlemen. Give it up for ZOUN. And his opponent down here in the bottom left. Give it up for the Shopify Rebellion's BYUN. But versus Cure, it looks like he couldn't convert any advantage he got. Yeah, I can agree with that. I think in terms of the ban process, the veto process, he left a couple of key maps in there. You know, you kind of don't want to have Oxide in the map pool. So, yeah, that can be a little bit of a problem. If you want to keep it in here, you're probably better off trying to go for a proxy versus BYUN. Because, yeah, once he gets up to that 3-base Terran War Machine army, it just really becomes difficult. You know, it's... I guess the best way to think about it is like the Juggernaut in X-Men. When he gets that momentum, he just goes faster and faster and faster. Also, no storms in the last couple of games. He did get the Templar Archives, but he was never able to really get up enough energy. I think if he had storms, those engagements would have looked a lot better for him. Now, no offense to BYUN. Obviously, he's not known as Micro Jackson for nothing. But when it comes to splitting, once the engagement starts, I think sometimes he kind of forgets to do that. You know, I've seen plenty of times where he'd be fighting against Banelings, and he just wouldn't split his army up at all, so he would take much bigger hits. I've seen him kind of stand in storms for a little bit longer than is relatively necessary, because he's focusing his attention on so many different locations at once that he takes a lot of damage, loses the fight pretty good. or pretty badly. So that's one kind of thing to keep in mind. You know, just use all the tools you have. Get that extra upgrade. Get that couple of extra colossi. Just do whatever you can. Now, he did go for Stargate, so already changing things up a little bit here. Unfortunately, BYUN is going for a 3 racks, which not necessarily a hard counter, but let's be honest. With the amount of production, with the amount of Marines that he has and can pull out, the Phoenix not going to be necessarily as effective, especially since we will see BYUN move out across the map relatively soon once that stim completes. Phoenix are pretty expensive units early on. They really take a lot out of you. And you can kind of see, as opposed to having the Twilight Council up, we are still only on 1 gateway of production. So there's not going to be a big ground army here. He's going to have to rely on the shield batteries to make this work. And I don't know. 22 to 14. That can be very misleading just with the composition. Ooh, and this is pretty bad as well. I think this is the first time ZOUN has really recognized that this is indeed the 3 racks. He's going to have to recall these Phoenix. Or at the very least, send them home as BYUN is on the warpath. Instantly throwing down an additional pylon to make sure that shield battery does stay up. He's got the sentry for Guardian Shield as well. ZOUN going to get 1 pick off there. But here we go. Gonna say to heck with that shield battery. Focus fires it down. Gonna get rid of the adepts on the ground. And now there's not really that many Marines left, but now the probe's being pulled to help out as much as humanly possible. So 6 of them will go down right away. The Phoenix, I think they're actually out of energy, so they can't lift up anymore. And so they are generally flying paperweight. So ZOUN taking a huge amount of damage right now. Oh my goodness. Take a look at that. 16 Marines, 2 Marauders for all of this bountiful harvest. And he's not done yet. You know, he's still got these Marines out on the map. That Phoenix count, he's only got about 5 of them, and there's not going to be a ton of energy available. So if he can focus fire those down, then that would be absolutely fantastic. Now, like Bitterwood is saying in the chat, it wasn't game ending, and that is totally understandable, totally agreeable. But just take a look at the production there. What this has allowed BYUN to do is that it's allowing him to get up his 3rd base relatively harassment-free. And as I say that, the Phoenix is going to be coming in, getting a couple of pickoffs. But he's going to be able to add on the siege tanks. He slowed down any sort of transition from ZOUN. As, you know, even though ZOUN has the robotics bay up, there's no Colossus on the production tab. And the additional gateways are very much delayed. Yeah, look at that. The 3rd base as well was not able to go down for such a long time. So now these Phoenix are just going to be rotating around looking for any sort of utility that they can. BYUN is up over 20 army supply, though. Let us see what he can do with that. It looks like right now he's kind of just positioning himself to go for that 3rd base location. And remember, that is a Terran's dream spot. As you can just drop a couple of siege tanks right here, wherever you want, and be able to hit a wide chunk of that army. Is that shield battery in range to, to be used with an overcharge? I'm not 100% certain if it is. A little bit of damage coming on in. 5 workers going down. That is pretty good here, and it's also going to force his BYUN's attention back. You can see him bringing his entire army back home to deal with it. But now we see the Ghost Academy is on the way. He's going to have those EMPs available to him. And ZOUN, you know, he's still behind, but he does have the Colossus. He does have charge on the way. If that can finish, that'll help him out a little bit. I don't like the fact that he is super far forward here. You know, he's trying to get the pickoffs on the siege tank. The force field's gonna keep a lot of this army away, but still takes a couple of connections. Now ZOUN is gonna have to back up. He's got to head back for the third base. That's gonna be his stand. BYUN just being very slow, very methodical with these siege tanks, moving forward slightly. As he's also going to find the fourth base before it goes up. Now just kind of rotating around, looking for a good angle to engage into the Phoenix moving forward. Baits some of the Marines in. One big siege tank volley. Going to take down some of those shields. But now the Ghosts are going to link up with this. EMPs can be pretty critical versus the Phoenix, as it means they won't be able to lift up the siege tanks here. Okay connection. He did get quite a bit there, I think. Okay, just a couple of Marines went down there, but here we go. The Archon in the front, soaking up a lot of the hits to Disruptor, forcing BYUN back. But now he's going to rotate around to that tank positioning. ZOUN just waiting for the engagement. He wants at least one more warp in. He wants those Disruptors as well to help him out. And as these guys have a little bit of a Mexican standoff, we see the Phoenix just going for as many small pickoffs as they can. Not going to get the medevac, however. Look at that, even going to drop down, or at least try to drop down the missile turrets. Siege tanks does get lifted up, but one Phoenix does lose its life for it. BYUN going to focus fire down the Disruptors on the right side. Yeah, ZOUN is still holding the high ground, which is phenomenal. He's still trying to bait ZOUN into bringing those Colossus too far forward. But I love how patient BYUN is being with his forces. You know, we see a lot of time Terran players will just go for a Hail Mary pass with this kind of thing, and it doesn't work out. But now 8 probes going down. The Zealots getting absolutely chewed through, and that is going to be BYUN's indicator that it is time to strike. But hold that thought. Never mind, as that Disruptor crushes through so much of BYUN's supply, and now ZOUN gets a timer of his own. He's going to be able to clean this out, potentially. All right, trading back and forth. ZOUN still has quite a bit of those high-tier units. Still those Archons. Still the Colossi. Still so many Disruptors. So BYUN, oh my goodness. You got to feel for BYUN there. He had a really good position. You know what, Bitterwood? I guess you could say you were not wrong. He did have the high ground, and according to Star Wars law, he wins the fight. So now BYUN has been backed up just slightly here. ZOUN going to dive on top of this. There's still a couple of siege tanks, and ZOUN is going to fight right underneath that Liberator field for quite a bit of time. The Disruptor shots not going to be super effective. This might have been an overextension here, as ZOUN is losing so many units. The Colossus are going to go down, and I think that might actually be it here. One Warpin of Zealots is going to bait it back, but he just lost so much. There you go. GG is called.